When I think back to that Saturday afternoon, I can still hear the sudden creak of the door and the way my nephew's wide eyes landed on me before I had time to explain. It had been one of those rare weekends when the house felt calm and quiet, the sun slanting through the blinds, and the gentle hum of the ceiling fan filling the silence. I was completely absorbed in what I was doing, almost childlike in my focus. My name is Laura, and I live in a suburban neighborhood just outside Chicago. For years, I had buried away the playful parts of myself beneath work deadlines, bills, and the endless cycle of responsibilities. But a few months before this story began, I bought something that reignited that old spark, an elaborate vintage wooden train set, the kind that came with miniature tunnels, hand-painted cars, and winding tracks. Some people would probably laugh at me for spending money on something like that at my age, but for me, it was more than a toy. It was a reminder of my late father, who had built little models like these when I was a child. Playing with it felt like reconnecting with the lost part of my own history. That afternoon, I had the train tracks spread out all across the living room floor, pieces connected in loops and bridges, the whole scene resembling a tiny world in motion. I had just finished attaching one of the smaller engines to the front of the cars and was crouched down, gently nudging it forward, listening to the soft click-clack of the wheels. It was silly, I know, but in that moment, I wasn't Laura, the overworked adult. I was simply a girl again, wide-eyed and fascinated by imagination. I didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. I didn't notice the sound of the latch until the door swung open. And then, there he was, my nephew Tyler, standing frozen in the doorway with a mixture of surprise and curiosity written all over his face. Tyler was 16, tall for his age, with a mop of brown hair that never seemed to stay in place. He had come over because my sister, his mom, had an appointment that afternoon and asked if I could keep an eye on him for a few hours. I thought he'd be busy with his video games in the guest room or maybe out shooting hoops in the driveway. I never imagined he'd walk in at the exact moment I was down on the floor, moving toy trains like a kid. "Aunt Laura, what are you doing?" His voice carried both confusion and amusement. I froze for half a second, my cheeks heating as though I had been caught in something scandalous. It wasn't shame exactly, but there was definitely embarrassment. Adults were supposed to sip coffee, read newspapers, watch TV, grown-up things. We weren't supposed to sprawl on the carpet playing with miniature locomotives. I laughed nervously and tried to explain. "Well, Tyler, I guess you caught me. This is my toy, or I should say my train set. I just, like playing with it sometimes." Instead of mocking me, Tyler stepped further into the room and squatted down to get a better look. His eyes followed the winding tracks across the floor, the tiny painted trees, and the cardboard station house I had set up. "This is actually pretty cool," he said after a pause. "Where do you get it?" Relief washed over me, and I let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding. It belonged to my dad originally. He gave it to me years ago, and I fixed it up recently. I guess you could say it's a little piece of family history. Tyler nodded slowly, as though trying to piece together the idea of his usually practical aunt enjoying something so whimsical. He reached out and gently rolled one of the cars forward, his face lighting up with genuine interest. That small gesture changed everything. In an instant, what had started as an embarrassing moment transformed into an unexpected bridge between us. The rest of that afternoon unfolded in a way I'll never forget. Instead of teasing me, Tyler sat down on the carpet beside me, and together we began building new tracks. He had ideas about how to make the loops more complex, and I showed him how to balance the bridges so they wouldn't collapse under the weight of the train. Hours passed without either of us noticing, laughter echoing through the house as we experimented with different designs. At one point, Tyler leaned back against the couch, smiling. "You know, Aunt Laura, I think this is the first time I've seen you, I don't know, having fun like a kid." His words hit me in a way I didn't expect. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had been too serious for too long. That little train set had cracked open something inside me, and now sharing it with my nephew, it felt even more meaningful. Over the next few weeks, this became our secret ritual. Whenever Tyler came over, we'd find time to work on the train set. Sometimes we'd invent whole backstories for the tiny townspeople. Other times, we'd challenge ourselves to build the most complicated track we could imagine. It became less about the toy itself and more about the bond forming between us. Tyler, who usually kept to himself and rarely talked about his feelings, began opening up to me. He told me about the pressures of high school, the way he sometimes felt invisible among his peers, and his dreams of becoming an engineer one day. Listening to him, I realized that the train set wasn't just healing something in me, it was giving Tyler a safe space too. A place where he could be himself without judgment. A place where imagination mattered more than appearances. But it wasn't always easy. My sister, his mom, eventually discovered us one evening when she came to pick him up earlier than expected. She walked in to find her grown sister and teenage son sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by toy trains. I braced myself for the inevitable teasing, but instead, she smiled softly and said, "You know, Dad would have loved this." Her words brought a lump to my throat, reminding me that this toy wasn't just wood and paint, it was a legacy, a bridge between generations. From that day on, our little tradition became something the whole family acknowledged, even celebrated. Holidays turned into opportunities for all of us to build massive tracks that sprawled from room to room. What started as an embarrassing moment when Tyler walked in unexpectedly became the beginning of one of the most cherished bonds of my life. Looking back now, I realize that sometimes the things we're most embarrassed about are the very things that connect us most deeply to others. My toy, as simple as it seemed, unlocked laughter, conversations, and memories that might never have happened otherwise. And it all began the moment my nephew came in suddenly, catching me off guard and reminding me that joy has no age limit.